Hey there, gang. I hope you're having a nice little holiday. So, I have been a sitting lump for the last few days. I've had a long vacation here with nothing to do. I've had plenty to do, but I haven't been going outside or anything. So, I'm deciding I'm gonna go ahead and kick myself in the pants and go to one of my favorite locales in town, being one of my favorite cemeteries. And I say that so casually, like there's many cemeteries that I go to. There are two that I like visiting, but there's one in particular that I really enjoy simply from an architectural standpoint. I like the location, and I really enjoy cemeteries for a multitude of reasons, and I'll explain that when we get there. But speaking of that, I will be bringing you along with me, so it should be an interesting little trip. But that being said, it did snow several inches, so it might be very hard to traverse the cemeteries. And I usually only go there at night just because I prefer nighttime. It's quieter and everything. I can focus a little bit more. But I wanted to do it in the day so that way you can see everything and I'm not carrying a flashlight around. So maybe in the springtime or summer we can try that again. But for now, I'm going to gear up, do what I usually do. And with that being said, I got my modified glasses over here for my photosensitivity. I got my hood, and let's get started. Alright, here I am after the long and perilous trek to the cemetery. Lots of unpaved roads, but I think I found a way. And now, we're here. One of my favorite locales in town. And as you can see, it's not plowed whatsoever. I will be lying down the first tracks, which should be pretty interesting. One thing that I always do when I enter any cemetery is I always say hello. Not because I'm particularly spiritual or I believe in the paranormal necessarily, but as a philosopher, I don't believe we're worthy of such answers. So the very least we can do, assuming that either which way can be correct or incorrect, we might as well pay our dues on the off chance that we are right or wrong, depending on what we believe in. But anyhow, this is the cemetery. I always forget the name of it because I enter through a corner way when the center way has the main name of this place, but it's absolutely beautiful. So the reason why I come by cemeteries is I always find that they're a great place to think, because there's always this taboo about cemeteries that it's bad to go there. There's ghosts and spirits and things of that nature. So people are usually tempted to not go into certain cemeteries. Oh, there's one thing I do love when you get snow. You get the tracks of different critters that have come through. I like that a lot. You always got to figure out what animal it was. But anyways, back on my topic. I personally think those misconceptions are very misguided. Because there aren't ghosts, as far as we know. There might be, but if there are, I haven't encountered any yet. But we have to remember that these stones represent people, just normal human beings who are once going about their day, doing their job, doing their work, have their own families, and have their own stories to tell. So when you think about it in that light, no matter what your beliefs are, it is easier to traverse sacred grounds like these. And being a person who is not religious at all, to me this is the most sacred locale that I can think of. The main path that cuts through this cemetery is totally covered, totally lost, so I can't actually find it. So I'm just going to need to watch my step and cut on through. And it looks like I'm not the first person to have done so, judging by the tracks over that way. Unless that's another animal, I'm not sure. But once again, I'm one of the few people who chooses to brave the snowstorms, let alone cemeteries at any given hour. Here's a really nice stone over here, and it's telling that this one's a little bit more modern because of how well polished it is. We have Tebow Smith, I believe, but you see it's got a nice gloss to it, very shiny, very well polished, and really nice floral designs in the corners. I like that quite a bit. Very pretty. Ooh, the snow's actually getting a little deeper on me, so I'm going to have to be careful, but it's okay. I'll keep treading around doing my walk, and if I find anything interesting, I will let you know. Here's another example. This is a family plot. You have several names over here, several dates. You got 1859 right there, and then 1946. So about World War II. I'd suspect as the latest that this cemetery has been updated. I can't expect anyone new would be buried here. So this place is archived. There's not going to be any more, as far as I know. Unless someone hasn't punched out yet. I'm still studying the layout of certain headstones, just by eye. I haven't been doing any research or anything, but for example, we have Wilder over here, so that's the main headstone. Then we have this row of little ones, and each one is a family member of Wilder. So I find that very interesting. Here's some interesting tracks. We got some really tiny ones going all along there, and something happened. I don't know what. A little bit of a skirmish, I guess. And here we got some poor folks who did not survive the snow, totally blanketed over. That's okay when things warm up, probably in 5 minutes, since this is New England after all. Then we'll be able to see them again. I think I mentioned earlier in this video something about unanswered questions, or questions that we can't answer, like, is there an afterlife? What happens after death? And of course, if you're in a place like this, those questions are abound, especially for a philosopher's mind. And the way I see it, I don't believe we're worthy of such answers just yet. I think we're meant to learn the truth when we're there at death's door, when it's our time. When does it happen? Why does it happen? That's out of the question. But I think the most important thing, in lieu of not having those answers, is that we build the best possible lives that we can with the truth that we have. Being that we are here, we have an effect on the earth around us, and effect on the people, living and dead. One thing that breaks my heart is some of these cemeteries are not the most well maintained. There's a lot of the taller style headstones have tipped over or broken or fractured. This one has fallen over, probably from winds, weathering, the contracting and expanding of stone. I'm not too sure. But yeah, it looks like Howe had a little bit of a stumble there. If I had the strength, I'd fix them. But at the same time, I wonder if when a headstone falls over, is it because of vandalism? Is it because of nature doing its thing? And if it's still down, is it because the groundskeepers are lazy, or is it considered a taboo to put a stone back to where it was? That I'm not too sure. Maybe it depends on the faith of the person who's there. Speaking of, I believe I have found the main path once again, so that's good. Actually, a little backstory. When I first moved into town, and I started coming to the cemetery, and several other places are speckled around, I always did audio journals where I just recorded my voice, but nobody ever listened to them. I actually saved them to a thumb drive that no one will ever find, and I keep those thoughts there. But once again, going back to my point, these are great, silent places to reflect and think. It's always nice. I know I don't have a whole ton of words to use right now, but just taking in the scenery here. Stones really are gorgeous. And you got some tilted over ones over there, and perhaps in the back, a feeble effort to keep them upright. That little stone right there. Let's push on back out. There we go. But yeah, and this one's interesting. It's got a little bit of a tint of red, so that's pretty neat. Actually, these two are interesting. We have Curtis over here, and move around a bit. We have some more footprints. We have Curtis again. So I'm not sure if they are the same Curtis family, or maybe or two separate ones that just happen to be right next to each other. I really don't know. Maybe there's just so many family members that they needed to erect another main stone to account for everybody that's here. Woo, here come the winds. Yep, did not wear the right pants for this occasion. This is pretty neat. We just traversed the greater wilds of this upper cemetery, but if we look to our left, there's a whole other section of cemetery downstairs that we can look at together. Something else I noticed is that certain headstones have little plaques, like that one over there, and a read up. So some of these people are folks who are more of note, I suppose, no pun intended. And then over here, you'll notice another headstone, which looks like it's a family one, that has a wreath on it. So I guess somebody's been visiting, perhaps. Here's an example. We have Parker. Looks like there's several read-ups over here. I haven't put my gloves on, and I don't feel like it, but I'm going to respectfully clean this off as best I can. And it's a little icy, I don't want to force it, but there's a read-up there, so you can learn about this fellow over here. There's another one, Daniel Bigelow. Not Parker, though. Interesting. I'll read those later. My glasses are a little bit smoky from my speech in the mist, so I'll check that out in post. Whoa, here we go. I'm fine. I'm always fine. This is actually kind of sweet. We have one stone leaning on the other. Wonder if they knew each other. I'd hope so. Be scandalous if they didn't. And then over here, they call this the centerpiece of the cemetery. It's not a mausoleum, but I think it's a storage building where they probably keep all the landscaping tools, stuff like that. Then again, it could just be more bodies. I really don't know. It's all left to my imagination. Of course, as you can expect, I've always wanted to go inside, but alas, the doors are locked. By a modern lock, no less. So, no getting in, and probably no getting out. Before I go down, I wanted to show you one of my favorites. Two of my favorites, actually. They are both visible from right here. I don't want to go down any too steep of slopes, obviously. I don't want to look too hilarious. But down here, we have a sphere right over there, which I find really interesting. And then we have a really big, almost sarcophagus-looking thing right there for one person, I suspect. So that's interesting. I wonder why someone would choose to be buried above ground. I'm not sure if that's a suspicion, if it's a regality thing. I really don't know. Here are the lower levels, which look a little bit older, from what I can tell just by the toning and architecture on the stones. I noticed that the more carved and the more intricately carved a stone is, the older it may be. Especially if it has an angel or a skull at the top of it. That usually indicates 1600s. So there is another cemetery around here, which does have dates in that range. So these ones I'm not totally sure. Look over here. Oh man. Here's another read up. Let's have a look. We have Andrew Goodnow, died 26 years, and here he is, right there. Amazing. We still have photos of these people. And it's amazing that they have these read-ups at all, because again, people wouldn't typically just wander into a cemetery. It looks like we have some of his friends over here. And these stones are 1860s. 1863, 61, another 61. Yeah, these were some young folks. Probably died fighting for the country. Or against the country, depending on how you want to look at it these days. You'll notice that these particular stones are less shiny than the ones that we saw on the upper level. So the ones up there are more modern. The ones down here show their age a little bit more, which are honestly the ones that I prefer to look at from an architectural standpoint. And if you go up here, this is another one of my favorites. And it looks like it's been repaired because there's a really heavy crack going through it. This one has a finger pointing up. Unique cosmetic choice, not a common theme among stones that I've looked at in the past. So I've always found that one interesting. And this one also looks like it's been bisected at one point or another, probably by the weather. I feel like that could have fallen off at some point and somebody managed to put it back. They probably have a team that comes by and repairs them every blue moon, but not often enough. And easily, the most tragic over here, just the name, we have Little Eddie. No date, no age or anything, just Little Eddie, that's all we know. And then I'm going to, once again, respectfully clean this off. I don't know what the shape over here is. Huh. Yeah, I can't make that out. Maybe it's been weathered over time. Maybe some sort of animal? I can't tell. I'm sure that if the snow weren't here, we'd have other stones right here representing them. But it looks like we have a fellow here who had 4 daughters. So it's pretty neat that we have one stone that represents everybody. I also like a stone tower. It's not a headstone or anything. There's no name on it. But I've always found it really neat. And during the warmer season, sometimes there's a little plant growing out of it, or maybe a bird bath. I don't actually quite remember. It's been some time. But, yeah. Nice little centerpiece for the lower level over here. There's actually one that I saw this way that I wanted to look at. That one over there with the pillars, the columns. I find that one interesting. Let's check it out. As I trudge carefully through the snow. Don't have a ton of my socks yet. And this one does have engravings on it, though it is weathered 1882. Yeah, I could barely read that. 43 years? 3 years? I can't tell. It's been so aged, you can't read the dates. Although, this one also has a read up, which did not succumb to the ice. Right here. Let me zoom in for you. James M. Gleason, excuse me, born 43, passed 1906. So getting a little bit more recent over here. And again, we got the photo. And some of these medals, probably honorary commemoratives of some sort. I don't know what they mean, though. Probably something having to do with this. And as soon as you exit, you're right on a suburban street with some homes. Actually, one running joke that my family and I have had is if I ever get a house one day, in this economy, it'll probably never happen, then I'd probably opt for a house by a cemetery, because rumor has it those houses are actually cheaper than normal. But that's something I definitely do. What I do if I lived in that home, sorry to put a spotlight on the family that lives there, I would probably live there and then come out to the cemetery, bring out a pencil and paper or something, and do my writing. I think this would be a perfect place to do something like that. And that being said, those are pretty much my favorite stones to be found in this cemetery. Again, this is just one. There is another one which is much older, though much smaller, that I can show you another time if you're so interested. Here we are, the Rock Lawn Cemetery. If we go this way, a snowplow over there. This is the main entrance to the cemetery. There are 3 entrances, one on the left, one on the right, and one down the middle. So that's pretty much it for today. I got basically nothing else to say, just a little trip. If you'd like me to come back during the evening hours sometime, I could definitely do that. So until next time, catch you later.